Hi everybody, it's Iman from Baby to Bed, and I want to talk to you again about putting your baby down to sleep. So what I'm finding a lot of my clients are saying, they can't actually put them in the bed and they go to sleep. So what they're doing is they'll hold them, they'll feed them to sleep, which is why I always say, please, I'd rather you use a dummy than you become the dummy. I know people are very anti-dummies, but at least if you have a dummy, it somewhat takes away the pressure, okay? But however, if you have problems putting your baby down, so say for instance, you've fed your baby, you've done all these things, you put your baby down, the first mistake you're probably making in the daytime, we're not going to feed them to sleep. So what we're going to do, they wake up in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock, whatever time you start your day, you're going to feed your baby. You feed your baby, you burp your baby, you change their nappy, and they're going to have a little bit of activity. Now, from 2 weeks to 3 weeks old, they're going to be showing you more signs that they're awake, okay? So the older they are, the more they're going to be awake. So imagine in the first 2 weeks, they're literally feeding and sleeping, and that's no problem. But once they show you signs that they're waking up in the day and they are a bit more alert, then you're going to feed on waking. They're going to be awake. And then when they need to go to sleep, you're going to put them in the crib and they're going to go to sleep. If they go down and they're a little bit whingy, you can put them to the side like that, put your hand on your shoulder and just shh. And then when they're asleep, just lie them back. Don't move your hand straight away because they'll just sort of, the reflex will just be like that. And, they're going to wake up again. So just hold them for a little while and then you can gently put their hands by their side, okay? Now, some people will swaddle. Now, my thing about swaddling is a good idea for some babies. But if you keep doing it, they become addicted to the swaddle. And also the swaddle becomes dangerous. So what we don't want to be doing, by the time they're 3 to 4 weeks old, we certainly don't want to be swaddling in the day, so that they get accustomed to also being able to do without the swaddle in the day, and then eventually you'll ditch it in the nighttime. Okay, so imagine they're a bit older and they've done their playing, they've been awake, and you're going to put them to bed. You go and put them in the crib, you put them down. We don't even want to sort of get them drowsy on you. They're going to go there and they might do a bit of moaning, that kind of thing. And I don't mean cry, that kind of thing. They might get angry. But like I said, if they're struggling, you just pull them to the side and you just give them a little bit of a shush pat. Now, I've seen people shush pat. You've got all sorts of different madness. And you'll get somebody who's going like that, or you'll get somebody who's like this. If they're making a noise, they can't feel you because they're too noisy. So if they're loud, you're louder. Shh. And if they're not making so much noise, you might just go shh. Okay? But once you know they're asleep, as I say, you push them back onto their back. Don't just let them go straight away. Hold them down for a bit. Make them feel secure till you know they're relaxed, and then move your hand away. Okay? So the key is we're not feeding to sleep in the day. When they wake up, we're going to feed them. And then they're going to be awake, as I say, from the time they woke up and started feeding. It might be 1.5 hours, 2 hours later, they're going to bed. So that means that when they've had a sleep, and in the morning they might only do like an hour nap, they wake up, it means that it's been 3 hours since they've been fed. Okay, not 1 hour, not 1.5 hours. So when people say to me, oh, I'm feeding on demand, well, what does that mean? Oh, I feed when my baby's hungry. Well, how do you know your baby's hungry? Oh, because they cry. Let me tell you, babies cry a lot, and you could be feeding every 1.5 to 2 hours. And believe me, they don't need it 1.5 to 2 hours, because what you're doing, you're snack feeding. Now, if you were given a bottle, if you were feeding your baby from a bottle, because people say, well, I don't know how much they've had. Let me tell you, if you do it properly, they're going to have a decent amount. And you'll know from wet nappies and the fact that they're getting bigger. But if you were feeding from a bottle, you wouldn't go in the kitchen every 1.5 to 2 hours to make a bottle. So why is it just because we're breastfeeding and it's easy to whip out the breast, oh, we're going to feed them every 5 minutes? It's not the way, okay? So they need to go to bed. They need to have a sleep. That way, when they wake up, you know for sure they've been awake about 1.5 hours. They've slept probably an hour. That's at least 2.5 hours, okay? But what I don't want you to do, so imagine they've been awake 1.5 hours, they've slept an hour for the morning nap. They wake up, don't think to yourself, oh, I'll wait until it's 3 hours to feed them, because what happens then, if they're still a bit tired, they might snooze on your breast And then you've kind of disturbed into the next sleep, because then they don't go down so easily. So it's better to do it closer to the time they wake up. So you wake up, you feed them, burp them, do the nappy change, and then they've got the awake time again. Okay. Now in the afternoon, they might sleep 2 hours. And again, what I find with a lot of my clients, they read a lot of these books and they're like, oh, they've got to feed at 7, 10, 1 or 7, 11, 3. Babies are not like that. They change. They might only do 45 minutes in the morning, which means it's a shorter gap between feeds. But what you've got to do is try and put them down without feeding them. So it's not about, let's forget about the timing at the moment. Let's not be rigid on the time, but we don't want to be feeding them every 5 minutes. And we don't want to put them down with a feed, because otherwise in the nighttime, when they are getting better and they are able to, go the night without food, they're not, because they don't know how to go to sleep unless they've been fed. So if they woke up in the middle of the night, they're not really hungry, but guess what? They don't know how to go down, because all they know, the only way I can go to sleep is by sucking. So please, if you're going to be that kind of mum, get a dummy earlier on. And I always say, actually, even when your breastfeeding's really well and it's established, introduce a bottle once a day. Why? If there's an emergency and you have to leave your baby with somebody, at least they can drink milk from a bottle. Okay, so just think about all these things, what you're doing, in terms of, think of the future. I might be going back to work. Don't think that you're going to wait 6 months and say, oh, suddenly I'm going back to work next week, so he'll take a bottle. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did, but it doesn't. And I often get called to go and put babies on bottles. And I always know if it's going to work within the first day. It's either going to work or it's not. And then you're wasting your time. So please, if you know you're going to go back to work after 6 months, once your baby's established on the breast, maybe 2-3 weeks old, and you've got your breastfeeding under control, do 1 feed a day on the bottle. And it can be formula or it can be breast milk. It doesn't matter. But at least you get used to sucking a bottle. So if anything happened, your baby's okay. So please, if you need any advice, contact me via TikTok or YouTube. Just send me a message. I'm always happy to help you. Thank you very much.